And for insight on today's proceedings, we're joined now by prominent New York defense attorney Arthur Aidala. Arthur, thank you so much for talking with us.
My pleasure. It's all my pleasure.
Let's start with breaking down the day from the very beginning with that hearing. Basically, the prosecution saying that Trump has violated the gag order. The judge didn't really seem very impressed with the defense's argument. What's your take?
Well, no, because sometimes when you're a defense attorney, your client does things that are really indefensible. And, we're supposed to say something, and you got to walk that line of not losing credibility. And unfortunately, today, Judge Merchan said to Mr. Trump's lead attorney, Todd Blanche, "You're losing credibility with me." That's like almost the worst thing a judge could say, especially in the second day of the trial. These are written words. It's not like, did he say it or didn't he say it, right? He obviously said it. It's just how much did he cross the line? And then what is the punishment going to be? And I tell you, Judge Merchan is in a really tough position because the most by law he can fine him is $1,000. What does that do with Donald Trump? $1,000? He just paid $175 million cash, right, for this bail bond on another case. So,
but there could be jail time now.
There could be jail time, but Linsey, I practice in that courthouse. I grew up there. My father was an assistant DA there in the 60s and 70s. It would be so unique, I guess that's the word, if you put a 77-year-old man, forget that he was president, who's never been in trouble before, who, yes, violated the gag order, but it's not like he said Judge Merchan's daughter should die or let's have a riot. I think, and a lot of the violations were retweets of what other people had said, other people had put out there, and he retweeted it. So the judge is in a little bit of a pickle. I think the prosecutor today in their argument said, we don't want you to put him in jail because we think that's what he wants. I mean, that'll elevate his... I mean, do you imagine the press on that if the judge put him inside? And one last thing, I did hear our colleague talk about the Secret Service preparing.
Right.
Donald Trump's not going to Rikers Island. He's not going to one of our local jail facilities. I mean, the worst case scenario is they would find probably an office for him in the building where the courthouse is. And yes, there's a jail in that building, but he's not going to go behind bars, not for violating a gag order. And there's a lot of people who think that gag order shouldn't exist in the first place because he has First Amendment rights. He's a charged defendant. He's allowed to defend himself. There's just this line that it's not a clear line where you could cross and where you can't.
Let's talk about David Pecker with the National Enquirer's testimony today. The idea of this catch and kill, where he would pay for the stories and then not publish them, also tell stories that were to Donald Trump's benefit, but tell some defamatory stories about his opponents at the time. Now, there are a lot of questions about just how ethical potentially this was, but is it illegal?
Good for you. I don't mean to say good for you, but yes, that's perfect. You're absolutely correct because everyone today is making such a big deal out of it. I know the penal law pretty good, the criminal law book in the state of New York. That is not a crime. It is not a crime to say, okay, I'll pay you $130,000 for your story, and I'm not going to run it. You use the right word. There may be severe journalistic ethical violations, which you would know a lot better than I would, but that's not a crime. They're just laying the groundwork for this payment, why the payment was there, what this check is all about, what Stormy Daniels is getting paid for. But in cross-examination, Mr. Pecker can help. I wouldn't imagine that he would do it on direct examination since the prosecutor has given him immunity, which means he can't get in trouble for this at all. But on cross-examination, if he says Mr. Trump wanted to do this for his presidential campaign, and he mentioned, well, it would be better if Melania doesn't find out about this or my kids, then the prosecutor's got a real problem because you have to be spending this money only in furtherance of your presidential campaign for no other reason. So we'll see what Mr. Pecker's got to say. But of course, he's got a clear head. He's got immunity. He can't get in trouble.
And speaking of Pecker, so during his testimony, and I want to quote him here, he described Trump as very knowledgeable, very detail-oriented, almost a micromanager. Why is that important to the prosecution's case?
Because they want to show Donald Trump knows what's going on. Donald Trump, when he signed everything, like they want to create the image like no one would put a stack of papers in front of him and say, here, at the time now, Mr. President, just sign these things, and he's just going to do it blindly like others might. They're trying to paint the picture of someone who I would never sign anything unless I know exactly what I'm signing, which may or may not be the case. But that's when you know a prosecutor has prepped a witness to give a particular answer, that's an answer that he was prepped to give.
All right, we have like 30 seconds left. Crystal ball here. Any ideas of outcome?
Hung jury. I think that the jurors, the 12 jurors, may have a real difficulty coming to an ultimate conclusion. And the charges, the actual law in this case is very complicated for a layperson to understand, because I don't 100% understand exactly what Donald Trump is charged with.
Arthur Aidala, pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure is all mine.
Break it all down. We'd like to have you back as well in the future.